Where does he get those wonderful toys? Here's your look at the new NECA Toys 1989 Batman Batarang Replica. The Batarang prop replica, as seen in the Tim Burton's 1989 smash hit Batman, was used by Michael Keaton as the Caped Crusader in the film. The plastic Batarang folds up in 3 places, complete with magnets to keep it closed. The prop replica even includes its own plastic display stand. Before we go answering some random goon's question about what are you, I figure the first thing we're going to want to do is figure out how big the Batarang is when you have it on display. Now, for displaying purposes, I'm just moving the tape measure out of the way just to tell you that the displaying purposes, NECA Toys have included a display stand, the very same one that you see in the opener of this review. For, of course, the purpose of displaying it, you're probably going to want to mount the Batarang inside that display stand, because, of course, it won't be able to stand on its own. For that reason, I'm going to go ahead and measure that as part of the height of the Batarang. I'm going to stop it right there. I'm going to measure to the top of its ears, not your ears, the Batarang's ears, to tell you that the Batarang is almost 6 inches in height. That is, again, including the fact it's sitting inside that display stand. We can go ahead and switch that to centimeters, revealing that the Batarang is 15 centimeters tall. I'd like to also thank the folks over at NECA Toys that provided the sample of the Batarang from the 1989 Batman movie that we could have a look at in this review. It should be slated to release this month, and the price point from what I've seen online is, I think, sitting at around $13 to $15, so it's very affordable for what you're getting. We're going to go ahead and take the Batarang off, as, like I said, it actually sits inside this display. It's not so much a display stand as I almost feel like it's a display tray. The points on the bottoms of the Batarang actually sit in those open grooves right there. But I'm going to just put the Batarang down for 1 second. I want to show you guys the display stand it comes included with. I appreciate the fact that NECA Toys did include a display stand. I mean, the Batarang on its own is obviously the cool thing that you're going to be interested in, but displaying it can always be problematic because you just don't want to have it sitting flat on a shelf. So they did think that and put that in consideration to include a display stand. And again, it's actually more so kind of like a display tray where it sits inside these grooves. To be all honest, the display tray is actually just like really thin plastic. It's actually very similar to the style of like a takeout tray if you ever got fast food or takeout food. It's a very similar style of plastic. It's not faulting that necessarily because really at the end of the day, you're getting a display stand for the Batarang. Could they have gone a little bit more for it? Possibly they could have just gone away with this whole back section and lowered this down so you didn't have this whole back display piece. I mean, really, it does look good when you take the Batarang and you fit that down into the grooves. And you're really not going to see the back anyways. I guess they could have also possibly gone in there and painted the Batman logo and just painted like a gold or yellow color. It's not to say you probably couldn't go in there with a metallic gold pen and paint in those letters, but at least it's something. We do get ourselves a display stand. Again, I'm just going to take this off, move it to the, show you the back end of it. And again, it's just all like, if you have this in hand, you know instantly the type of plastic that you're dealing with. It's all hollow on the inside. But again, like you get yourself a display stand. I really do want to stress that, the fact that we do get ourselves a display stand. It could have been fine and good if we just got ourselves the Batarang on its own, but it's nice to be able to actually be able to display it somewhere upright. And short of you actually crafting like a little cradle for this to rest on, I suppose they could also have done just like a little, kind of just a little pointed section where you could have actually just sat the Batarang on the top like that and had these just drape off to the sides. But what we do get is actually still a serviceable means of displaying the Batarang in your collection. So check out this Batarang. It's molded in black plastic. Because of the material that NECA Toys actually used, it's generally quite light when you're holding this in your hand. Now, it would be all fine them releasing this as a collector's grade die-cast version of the Batarang as well. Of course, it would mean some additional cost, but I think it would also run into some trouble of them releasing a die-cast Batarang to the toy aisles because it probably could be considered a weapon. Plastic probably was the safest bet to go, and I still feel plastic gets the job done of replicating the Batarang that Michael Keaton wields and throws in the original 1989 Batman movie. One thing I will say is I like the fact that they did finish both sides of it, so when you are holding this in your hand, for example, it does feel like a fully finished replica. It does have some paint, of course, not really much, the majority of this area of the Batarang. However, it does have some nice silver that they've added to the points, the very ends of the Batarang. And while they're not necessarily sharp, I can run my finger across it fine. I do feel like the point is just pointy enough that you definitely will not want to be throwing this around. I feel if this hit somebody in the face, it could really do some damage. So really only keep this as a display piece and not something that you're going to be wanting to throw around. As you can see, there are some serviceable hinges there on either side. Now, the idea this folds in on itself for compact storage in your utility belt, if you do have a utility belt, that is. One thing I will say just before we fold up shop here is when you are holding the Batarang, I would recommend really holding it where the hinges are facing up like this. Because if you flip it around, you'll see on the other side there's no hinges. And if you hold the Batarang like this, it seemed to be more prone to coming free from itself, kind of like what you're seeing right now. So if you are going to be holding this in your hand, I would probably hold this so the hinges are facing upward, and then you're not going to have any issues with those sides folding down on themselves. But to fold this in on itself, there are hinges on one side that fold in the wings, and then on the other side there's a hinge that folds in the center. All you have to do is take this and fold it in like this. And one thing actually I do like about this is it's all magnetized. You don't see it, but there's magnets actually inside the plastic molded Batarang. So as soon as you bring it up, it latches in place and it stays good there. It's not going to go anywhere. The same thing can actually be applied for the wings. There are magnets on the inside here so that when you are closing it, it snaps up immediately. And for the most part stays in place, again, unless you're holding it like this. But if you do want to fold it in, all you have to do is take the hinge, fold it in this way, like that, and then you can go ahead and fold it in this way as well, on both sides. And you've got yourself compact storage for the Batarang. To extend it, again, you do the exact same thing. You could fold this out, It's really strong magnet. There we go. Fold it out, and then fold it out like this. I wouldn't necessarily try to replicate what Michael Keaton does in the movie, or the stuntman that did it in the movie, where he actually could extend out the Batarang in his one hand. I don't think it really is designed for that, and I feel it would do damage to the Batarang if you tried to do that. Instead, if you want to fold it up, again, just fold it in on itself like that. Fold it in on this side and on this side. And the magnets, for the most part, kind of keep it in place, at least the center area, so it doesn't start opening up on you. Now, short of me actually just having a utility belt where I could store this in one of the pockets, it stores it up rather conveniently, and it's small enough. It doesn't fit necessarily, unfortunately, on that display stand that we were looking at before. Bringing in that display stand, like clearly there is no place to put it when it's folded up like this. The only way to properly present it is to fold it out like this, and then just display it in the center area of the display stand. I gotta admit, that looks pretty cool. Now, I may be a tad partial to Batman Returns as being my favorite of the Batman movies, but the original 1989 film starring Michael Keaton is still a classic considered by many. Michael Keaton, of course, would don the cape and cowl in both the 1989 film and the follow-up sequel, Batman Returns, and he's still by far my favorite of the actors to portray the Caped Crusader. Ben Affleck is up there, but he's never going to be Michael Keaton's status for me. Here we have finally a 1-to-1 scale prop replica of that original 1989 Batarang, and boy does it ever look cool. It's all done in plastic, and I can certainly understand why NECA Toys had to go the route of plastic. Die-cast can get a little more expensive to produce, but of course you have to worry about the safety issue of kids throwing around die-cast Batarangs. Things could get smashed. People could get hurt. So I can understand why they had to go the route of plastic instead. Now, speaking of plastic, you also get yourself a nice display stand, all done also in plastic. It's very hollow, thin plastic, similar to what you would get with like a fast food takeout tray. Very similar style of material. It presents itself rather nicely, at least the Batarang it does. Because, I mean, again, if you were just to get the Batarang, where would you put it? Lay it flat on the shelf? How exciting is that? You could, of course, mount it on the wall, but NECA Toys went that extra mile and gave you a nice little display stand that you could put the prop replica of the Batarang actually onto. It would have been nice, actually, if they had given us two versions of the display stand. The larger one that we're seeing here with, of course, Batman's name across the front, so we all know who the Batarang belongs to. But maybe a smaller version where just the center point of the Batarang could actually have been lodged into, where the Batarang would be free to spread its wings, so to speak. But I'm really happy with how this one turned out. And apparently, this is the beginning of many prop replicas that NECA Toys are going to be releasing. Hopefully, it's not just going to be Batman, but other superhero movies. The idea that NECA Toys is branching out the realm of not just doing statues, not only just doing figures, but also giving us prop replicas, I gotta admit, it's pretty cool. And if you're a big fan of the original 1989 Batman movie, or if you're just a big fan of the Michael Keaton Batman films, you might do yourself a service and pick this one up for yourself. Now, a big thank you to the folks over at NECA Toys that provided the sample of the 1989 Batarang Replica that we had a look at in this review. For your video question for today, what's your favorite Batman movie? I always like reading your comments down below. If you're also new to this channel and you're liking all the content you're seeing, consider then, if you haven't done so already, to hit that subscribe button down below, turn the bell notification on, and of course, come back to this channel Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as that's when new videos are always popping up. And lots of new NECA reviews are coming up your way as well, so keep those peepers ever peeled. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.